Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. I got Fatty here once again. Dr. Snacks is nowhere to be found, but she's just, she's blazing her own trail. That's how she does it. We miss you, Snackies. So today I'm going to talk about the two shortest dates I've ever been on in my entire life, and they happened recently. I was going to take a full detox during second lockdown and not date. Get my head right, get my self-esteem up, really work on myself, because I think I do kind of use dating as a little bit of a distraction to deal with the deeper issues rumbling around in my subconscious. But there you have it. I mean, each date's a lesson in itself too. So the first date, Freddie and I are going to play this game on the side here. Hopefully I can concentrate on both. The first date, I knew he had a car. That factors in later. He said he would come meet me after my shift, which is really nice, really thoughtful. But it was like rain snowing at the time. So I'm talking like those kind of like large plops where it almost feels like a bird's crapping on your head, like just chunks of rain snow. Plus I was exhausted. It was like I had worked 9 hours that day instead of 8, and it was the craziest, busiest day of the year. I was exhausted. And he shows up, and he doesn't look anything like his picture. But, well, sorry, he does, but not. Anyways, so we start walking, and I'm kind of thinking, like, okay, are we walking to his car where it's like warm, or does he have an idea? Because like we can't actually walk through this rain. He didn't bring an umbrella. I don't have anything because it was dry when I left home. My hair is getting like wet, like bangs against my head, and he's not saying anything. He's just like asking me questions. And finally, there was a gap, so I was like, hey, what are we doing? And he's like, I don't know, like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, wow, it is super sexy when a guy has nothing planned. I know it's COVID, and I know it's cold, but something should be discussed. That's a little bit on me. I am not going to meet somebody at all if there's just nothing. Like, I don't know, like, do you want to walk around the Manulife? And I'm like, listen, I don't mean to be rude, but I've had a long shift. I've been on my feet. I'm exhausted. But I did find it really strange. Like, he wasn't even saying, like, do you want to go grab coffee? Like, he had no thought in his head about my needs. The fact that I am soaking wet and it's freezing out. Maybe I want a drink after a long shift. Just zero consideration, which is kind of like, yeah, I've seen enough, like, we're good. And I suggested, like, well, I don't know, maybe grab a drink, drive around. He says nothing. Then he asks me if I have any weed. Why would I bring weed to work? What are you talking about? And he's like, do you want to smoke up together? So it's like, okay, not only is that the weirdest plan ever, but you're trying to mooch weed off people? Like, and I'm like, I'm sorry, there's no way that's anything I would ever be comfortable doing with a complete stranger. He's like, yeah, no, I get it, I totally get it. Like, I lived in California. And then he basically paints this picture of, like, smoking weed with strangers in California is like handshakes, apparently. I don't know where he lived in California. I think he said, like, outside San Francisco. I don't know. But I'm like, okay, sure, maybe that's a thing. I mean, so we just keep walking, and he hasn't, like, acknowledged, like, my idea of driving around. So I'm like, this is so weird. And I kind of turn us around so that we can, like, walk back to a Subway, because I got to go. Like, I am drenched. And we go back to the Manulife Center, and I'm like, I guess I'll go home, and he's like, oh, okay, okay, cool. I'm like, because, you didn't even say anything when I suggested maybe driving. He's like, oh, I didn't bring my car. And I'm like, okay, so summarize. You had no plan, you didn't bring an umbrella, you didn't even ask me maybe what I want to do. You didn't bring your car, even though that would have been warm. And like, it just was like, this is dumb. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll take the subway if you want to take the subway together. He kind of like doesn't say anything, and then I'm just like, okay, bye. And I don't even think he realized like that was a total fail, because the next day he sent me like a gif of like a cat wearing a Christmas hat, and I'm like, anyways, cool. So the second date, we actually had a plan, because there was a park in his pictures that looked really nice, like a trail, and I commented on it, and he's like, do you want to, like, I can show you, do you want to like walk on that trail? I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. But then I started to lose some steam, because when he was confirming the plans, he asked me how my Christmas was, and I said how it was. I'm like, how was yours? And he didn't even write back, and I don't like it when people ignore me, like, full force. So what? And then the park is an hour away. Okay, so it's in his neighborhood, but it's an hour away from me. And normally I like to meet somewhere that's like, have that discussion of like, is this convenient for you, and meet somewhere that works kind of for both of us. Most guys are absolute angels and are like, I'm coming to your area. And I just think that is like the sweetest thing ever. So I was already breaking my kind of like getting, consideration rule and traveling an hour. So I felt like he could have stepped it up or been mindful of that fact. So what the place was at Kipling and Lakeshore, and so once I got to Kipling, I sent him a text. I'm like, I'm just getting on the bus. He writes back, okay, period. Again, most people will be like, okay, cool, I'm on my way too, or like, looking forward to seeing you, or okay, smiley face would have even been better. And I'm just thinking, like, man, I am not a match for this guy, because I am expressive, and I like other people who are expressive as well. So cool. So I'm already starting to get a little jangly inside. I get off the bus. I'm 2 minutes late. He's nowhere to be found. And I'm starting to get annoyed that he didn't sort of like say a place or give more communication, because it's like, this is a big area. Like, there's like kids tobogganing, there's like a skating rink, there's like a football field, there's like a trail, there's like a this, and I'm like, I start walking and I'm like, is he around? Am I missing something? Which I just don't think you should put somebody in that position, like, I think if you should be there on time, right where they're gonna be, or you should give a location, whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's just dumb. So I sent him a text. I'm like, I'm here. A couple minutes go by, I haven't heard back. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna make the most of it and just start walking by myself and just explore this area and just have fun, because I don't know if I'm getting ghosted. I don't know what's going on. He's 10 minutes late, and he calls me and he's like, sorry, I just got your text now. Where are you? I just got here. And I'm like, okay, I just, you're kind of late. And he's like, yeah, no, I just got your text now. And it's like, what does my text have to do with anything? The fact that I had to text and say I'm here is gross. Like, again, most guys are gems and tend to be the ones texting, being like, hey, I got us a seat, or hey, I'm here, I'm at this pole, or whatever, this landmark. So it's like, what is happening? And he's just like shutting down, and I'm like, oh boy, this is awkward. So we meet up, and there's no warmth, there's no like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, like, I hope you weren't waiting long, or like, are you cold, like, or like, do you want to get a coffee? Like, nothing. Just kind of like, hey. And he looks like a slob too. Like, I'm wearing like makeup, Tory Burch boots, like, I'm trying to be all like winter cute, putting in an effort, because I think putting in an effort shows them respect. This guy does not look like his pictures. He's got like kind of a faded slobby t-shirt and his jacket wide open. I am freezing, because it is freezing cold outside, and he's just like, ugh, like walks ahead of me, is like barely saying anything, because of that you know, that kind of like conflict was so awkward. No warmth. And I'm kind of still in my like huffed out mode. I'm trying not to like, I'm not like angry or yelling or trying to like throw negative energy at him, but I am trying to address the situation because it has not been cleared up. And I say to him, you know, it didn't feel good to travel an hour and get here and nobody's here and you're not hearing from them. And he's like, I can show you the text, like I can show you that my phone, I didn't get the message. And I'm like, why is this guy like super hung up on the fact that I sent him a text message saying here and he didn't get it? Like, what does that have to do with anything? And then he goes into like, oh, like, I wasn't sure if I should take my bike or if I should walk. And I'm like, what is happening? Like, you're talking around the issue. And the issue is that like, I found that behavior inconsiderate and I would like that energy cleared up. And if you're not able to do it, that is totally cool. Namaste. I gotta go. The bus is there, you know, like, and the fact that you're being like quiet and walking ahead of me and being all awkward is like gross. And he's like, do you still want to do this? Like, it's up to you. Like, oh my God, this is gross, 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 gross. And I'm like, it just feels like the energy is off. Like, I'm sorry if you're not understanding, you know, my standards tend to be like, I like people to be on time or send me a message if they're going to be late or whatever. And he's just like, okay. And I'm like, okay. Like, this guy's in his 50s. He's dressed like a slob. Like, I gots to go. Like, and I was just like, okay, you know what? I'm going to book it. And I left and I felt good. And I don't even care if I'm a bitch because that was dumb. And both dates were dumb. And I kind of feel like I'm getting more discerning and I am going to avoid situations like that in the future, you know, by being more discerning. And sidebar, the next night I was watching like this weird Canadian murder mystery show and there was like, in that park that we were supposed to have our date in 1999, they found decapitated body parts. So I was like, and affirmation. So, what a funny virtual reality game life is. But it was kind of nice, I have to say. Like, let's go annoying into my spiritual reflections on this. I hope I didn't cause hurt feelings or rejection or whatever. Like, that's not my intention. But it did feel like, okay, this is the portion of the video game where I gotta kind of speak up and state my boundaries, and I'll see you later. I'm not gonna waste anybody's time because we obviously don't get along, and that is totally cool. First guy, you can find your girl that walks in the rain. Second guy, you can find a girl that's like totally cool, traveling an hour to be standing outside for 10 minutes waiting. So whatever. I don't feel as angry as I used to be, which is nice because I really don't want to. I want to feel my anger and kind of like have it dissipate, but I don't want to like be barfing my anger onto humankind. And I certainly don't want to like not say anything and feel angry and then be weird and passive aggressive or just flat out aggressive. So I don't know. I think it shows a little bit of growth, but I also need to not date and have all these distractions, and I need to really clear up some of the junk that's floating around inside, some of those feelings of not measuring up and feeling unlovable and all that fun stuff that I think every human being deals with. And I mean, COVID really is our opportunity to not have those distractions that keep us from really clearing up all the garbage that is floating around, all the things that are blocking us from evolving and from being in communion with our source, if I can say that. So yeah, and once again, thank you, Fatty, for loving me even though I'm rambling, and I hope everybody has a fantastic New Year's and stay safe and all that fun stuff. And